Hello again. I ended the first part of this show about deception on a negative note, so I wanted to end it with a positive note. And because that's what God does, He ends things with a positive rather than negative. And I just want to imitate Him. To give you an example, when Adam and Eve were in the garden and they fell, did God leave them there in their fig leaves, never to fellowship with them again? No, of course not. As a result of their falling into sin, God changed their final destination from the Garden of Eden for eternity to heaven. And that was an act of redemption. And also, when Jesus came, well, first of all, we were all born into sin. And did Christ just leave us to be condemned to hell in that sin? No, He didn't. He sent Jesus to die in our place. And that's what I call changing a negative into a positive. That's what redemption is all about. So back to deception. We are all prey, P-R-E-Y, for masterminded deception and a lot more. But we have the privilege of putting on God's armor. As God's kids, we have the privilege of wearing His protection. It's in the Bible, in Ephesians 6, verses 11 to 19, all about the armor of God, if you want to check that out. And that's a gift to us. He shields us from the darts of the enemy. And in my mind, we have imaginary pictures in our mind sometimes, I see them like, I visualize them, the darts of the enemy just bouncing off of us and ricocheting. Seriously. Sometimes I just wish they would ricochet and hit him in his backside, as he's due. God's life offers all kinds of pluses to us. He makes us kinder, more virtuous, more thoughtful, more patient, less vengeful, less resentful. And speaking about resentment, there is so much conflict and resentment in families today. Well, there's always been a family feud. We all know about the Hatfields and the McCoys. But that's all you seem to hear is family members don't even talk to each other. And I can't say I don't understand it because I've been there myself in my life, but I didn't stay stuck in it. I want to give you an example. I'm going to read you just a little testimony from one of my little booklets, and it's all about reconciliation and how God gives us a spirit of reconciliation. This is from my booklet, You Ask Me Why. And this had to do with a family member, but I'll just call her a friend. Please listen carefully because these words are like, they just tell it like it is, that you can really identify with it. I had a monumental disagreement with a friend, during which time terrible words were said to me. In addition, accusations were made about me by others. I was so devastated that instead of looking at it all from where it came from, hell, I looked at the people involved after their flesh, and I internalized their hatefulness. We all know what that is. So help me, I cried for 2 weeks. I finally called my pastor on the phone, bawling. I begged for his help. He was a tremendous help to me. He didn't say, "You're right, BJ," or "You're wrong, BJ." He didn't say, "Do this or do that, BJ." He simply asked, "What did God tell you?" I knew in my heart what God had said to me concerning the matter, and hearing the words come from my pastor's mouth was releasing, like having some sense shaken into me. You know, sometimes, no matter how much we want to imitate God, we can't. We still have to go through what is termed as surface stuff before God's words reach below the surface to begin a healing. My tears eventually subsided and a healing began. The above situation with my friend transpired over the phone. I knew that I would eventually have to face her and that she had had a reputation of being a bear. it was certain that we would cross paths within the next couple of months, I was a wreck thinking of how I would hold up, as it has never been in my nature to have a confrontation with anybody. If I had my way, I would have just forgotten that we were acquaintances and gone on with my life. But God doesn't do things that way. The closer I drove to the site of the encounter 3 months later, the more nervous I became. I don't think I could do this, God. Then it was the Holy Spirit's turn. BJ, I want you to go in there with a spirit of reconciliation and, listen to this, as a repairer of the breach. Okay, God, I'll do it. But you're going to have to clothe me with strength and with grace. After the initial greeting, I leaned over to give my friend a hug. She turned to ice. The atmosphere was tense. I clung to Jesus in my spirit. To me, this was no less than a Red Sea miracle.